Hello, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for coming. My name is Mark Briggs. I'm the Director of Digital Media at King 5 Television here in Seattle. I am also the author of a few books on journalism and the state of journalism in this age of disruptive digital media. And one of the key contributors to a couple of my books is with me today. And that's Richard Hernandez, who comes to us from the University of California at Berkeley. So welcome, Koci.
Thank you.
Also, probably better known as Koci to those of you who are avid Instagram users. Definitely one of the most popular Instagram artists. And one of the great pieces of this session will be coming up in about 20 minutes, where you get to see Koci go through the process of how he makes those incredible images. So you'll definitely want to stay put for that. But we've got a lot of good content to get to, so we're just going to get right into it. How many of you, by show of hands, have taken a picture today? How many of you have taken more than one? We have a lot of photographers here. And that's kind of the state of today, right, when it comes to photographs. You all remember, if you're of a certain age, an era of 12 exposure film, where your parents would, only have 12 pictures to take on your family vacation. So every photo was absolutely critical, and it was, scarcity was in hand, and then it was go get the film developed, and that took 2 months. And then, if you came back with the film, you would only show the photos to certain kinds of people. It was a very special occasion, this whole idea of taking a photo and sharing a photo. Then, of course, there was the Polaroid era, of course, where you got the printout, and then you'd wave it in the wind and hope that it dried in time that you could show somebody the photo. But today we live in a much, much different world, right? We live in a world where the sharing of photographs and the taking of photographs has become pretty much as commonplace as breathing. So this graphic is going to be hard to see, but that little tiny red dot in the corner that's enlarged represents all of the photographs in the Library of Congress compared to all of the photographs on Facebook. 300 million photos uploaded each day to Facebook. So it really has just become part of how we exist, how we express ourselves, just the snapping of photos now that we all have a camera in our pocket. In fact, downstairs this morning after the fire drill, Madeline Moy remarked to me that she was about to stop and take a photograph of the fire coming out of the ceiling, and she had to catch herself and say, I should probably just get out of here instead of taking this photo. And that's become where we're at. We take photos first, and then we worry about our personal safety second, right? Thankfully, not that bad. People also like to really share photos. So you're probably aware of Instagram's popularity. 100 million users. They're gaining 5 million new users a month, and they have more than 1 billion photos uploaded. And this photo came to King 5. One of our viewers posted this on Instagram, and this is of the water spout a couple weeks ago. For those of you in Seattle, maybe you knew about these things. I've lived here for almost 20 years. I've never heard of a water spout, and the idea that a cyclone-like wind could draw water up from the sea into the clouds, but pretty cool stuff. And this is the kind of impact that having a camera in everyone's pocket, that's how much it has changed our society, and especially the news business, which is something we're going to talk about here in a minute. But does that make everyone a photographer just because they have a camera?
Well, I put this picture in here. I don't think it does. I think we have to remember that if you're into labels, which I'm not, but this is for all the professional photographers out there, you don't have to worry. I think that what we're going through is an era of visual communication. This is mostly what's on Instagram, right? This is not a classic photograph, in my opinion. This is visual communication. I love it. I absolutely think this is the greatest thing in the world, but I think that it's okay to make a distinction between somebody who goes out and what's going through their mind are light and exposure and shutter speeds and composition and rule of thirds. And I don't think that poor Drew Shipley, who I just randomly found on Instagram, was thinking about those things when he posted this photo to Instagram. So if you're asking me, does it make everybody a photographer? Yes, it does. Hell yes, bring it on. Let's go for it. I love it. There's no reason that we all can't be photographers. There's no question that, creating art with the tool of the times has always led to great things. And I think, yes, we're all photographers in some sense. But it's still important to look at what's in the stream and what's out there and realize that all a camera on a phone is a new input device, and most people are using it for visual communication, like here I am at Starbucks, here's my latte, yada, 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 but it's not particularly the definition of photography, if you will.
So having so many cameras out there has changed the nature of the news business, of course, because every news organization, be it a local television station or a newspaper or a neighborhood blog, is constrained by the number of people that can actually be out reporting the news and shooting photographs of the news. So now we rely at King 5 massively on our users to be shooting photos, uploading them to our Facebook page, sending them to us via email, uploading them to our website, or posting them on Instagram. We have a very active Instagram community that is managed and was started and managed by Yvonne Benedict, who is my rockstar social media manager here in the 5th row and trying to look like no one's noticing her. Stand up and wave, Yvonne. So you can see that other news organizations are doing this as well. So CNN iReport, their citizen journalism or user-generated content outfit with its own app and its own Twitter account. It's really its own existence, its own brand, has more than 219,000 followers on Instagram. And so what this has created, here's a photograph that we got at King 5 from the Taylor Bridge fire near Ellensburg from a user. You know, what this has created is just a whole new set of eyes and ears with everybody in a news organization. So instead of just listening to the police scanner, you know, or now we, of course, have to monitor all the social media channels that we can get our hands on to make sure that we see where people are, where news is happening. It's gotten to the point now where if you hear a news tip, if someone sends us an email, you know, we're going to try to check it out by finding photographic evidence of it somewhere on the internet right now. So unless you see an actual photograph of something that someone is reporting, you tend to not believe it, because that's how ubiquitous having real-time photography everywhere we are has become.
Those are my slides just to basically prove that photojournalists cannot compete with the social stream of things. I mean, the last shuttle launch, what a beautiful, beautiful photograph taken on a mobile device pointed outside of a plane. And the very first evidence we've got when a plane crashed in the Hudson was from Twitter. You know, on another note, these are the same kind of things that CNN used in a memo to several of its photographers across the country to let them go. Basically, you cannot compete with the social stream. So there's also a negative impact, if you will, in the industry, in the business, because of what's going on here at the same time.
And I only wish that, you know, more news photojournalists wrote captions like this. There's a plane in the Hudson. I'm on the ferry going to pick up the people. Crazy. So you started the question. We'll delve into it just a little bit more here. So what does that mean for professional photographers, for photojournalism at news organizations? Should we just fire all our photographers and rely on people with iPhones in their pockets? Well, obviously not. It's going to be a combination of both amateur and pro, if you want to use those terms. We've got to use some labels. We need people out there who are going to be on the front lines of news events that we can't get to share their images with us so that we can share them with the world or with the local community. You know, breaking news in many cases is a public service meant to distribute information so that people can keep themselves safe. You know, look at what's going on with Hurricane Sandy right now on the East Coast. I mean, that's the crux of what's happening there. This is from the Wenatchee River Complex fire earlier this year, where 200 homes were evacuated, and this was sent to us by a viewer. So it's that kind of response immediately where they're at that we can't be, or no other news organization can be, that helps in this public service that is breaking news.
Yeah, I wanted to break it down a little bit more in terms of what it means for professional photographers, because I think it's the golden age of storytelling in general, especially for photographers. There's no better way to communicate with an audience because of mobile photography than there is now. And this is kind of an insider picture, if you will, but this was at the recent Olympics, and the two hands holding mobile phones are two of the greatest sports photographers to ever live. One from Sports Illustrated and one from the weekly magazines. And the other one, Nat, is my friend who's photographing them with his phone, and it's all at the Olympics. And the immediacy, right? I mean, this would be unheard of a few years ago, to think that the top professionals in the industry would be shooting an event like the Olympics on mobile phones. And if we go to the next one, you can see some of the work. This is Dan Chung from The Guardian. He shot the entire Olympics with just his iPhone and a little adapter to some binoculars. And he was able to when you cover sporting events like that, you literally are like this, and you can't move, and you're there for hours. And you're like this, and if you have a laptop with a Wi-Fi, you have to put it under here, and you have to maybe take the card out and do this and not get, but there he was. He got to stand there with his iPhone and take all of these beautiful images and then immediately upload them. So the immediacy, right? The power of the immediacy, and until we get connected cameras, which I hope one day we will. I mean, we'll have everything, I would imagine, at the rate things are going. But it still baffles my mind that Canon and Nikon haven't put connectivity inside of a camera. But who cares? We have iPhones now, so it's fantastic. But that's some of the work that he did. The other opportunities that are there, on the next one, this is a friend of mine, Brad Mangian, who shot using his mobile phone, and Sports Illustrated published a nice spread of his work. So a great opportunity for Brad. And then the next one, I think, is another level for photojournalists, which is very empowering, and I think it just trickles down to everybody. Nobody thinks of a mobile phone as a serious photographic device. And Damon Winter was able to capture some of the conflicts overseas, and being embedded, he was a photographer for the New York Times, and being embedded with the soldiers, when he brought his professional camera up to his eyes, they would stop what they were doing. They were very aware of the camera, especially in the downtime. Clearly that's not the case during combat time. But he was able to use his mobile phone as a tool, and I felt it was the right tool for the job, and he just brought it out, and they continued to be themselves because they didn't think anything of it. And he was able to make some really, really emotional and intimate images because of his ability to use this device, which is it's very stealthy in terms of what it does. So that's another, I think, great opportunity for photojournalists, and anyone in particular who wants pictures. And I'll talk about how that works out in terms of a practical sense when I show you a few tips later.
We at King 5 and at most news organizations, of course, think that everyone is a photographer of some merit. Because if you're going to be in the right place at the right time to take the picture that we need to tell a story or to report the news, then that is all the definition of photographer that we need. And just to prove that anyone, or regular people that are not being paid to be photographers, can take amazing photos, here's a lightning strike from our viewer, Tim McCord. From earlier this summer. You know, it's an amazing picture taken by someone who does not work for King 5. And we see this happening on and on again. You know, if you search right now on Statagram or one of the other services, Bing Social, for example, and search for Hurricane Sandy pictures, or go to breakingnews.com and see what's being posted there. I mean, the majority of the photos that are really compelling are the ones where it's just a regular user, a viewer, a reader, whatever you want to call these people, but they're now the eyes and the ears of news organizations, and they are, in every sense of the word, to me anyway, a photographer.
Yes, social photography can make better photographers. When I'm at that end and this conversation is going up, I just want to stand up and scream, just shut up and stop whining, and everybody just starts shooting. I mean, you know, basically we're all tied up with this thing as a tool and all of these kinds of things. I could care less. I just want people to shoot pictures, and shoot pictures all the time, and let that come from the heart, period. Just shoot, just shoot, be prolific. And can you be a better photographer? You can be a better anything if you practice, right? That's all it is. You can be better, and you can be better. So I think that mobile photography, especially social photography, had just opened this world up to everyone to allow them to practice and create on a level that I think is unprecedented. Because of the feedback, it's all about communication, right? You can shoot and shoot and shoot, and then you can get feedback. But one of the things I wanted to just use this small opportunity in answering this question was to say, yes, no question you can be a better photographer by practice. But when we're out there and we're shooting and we're sharing, make sure it's not a one-way street where you're just, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. Stop and take a moment to genuinely look at others' work, and then everyone, can we please raise the level of discourse on our comments? Awesome, clapping hands, thumbs up. That doesn't do anybody any good, right? Tell someone why you like that picture, or ask them, how did you do that? Most people are waiting for that kind of comment and that kind of feedback. And what that does is that starts the kind of circle of communication in terms of sharing and how things happened and realizing, oh, that's how you did it. Oh, I see, or that's how you got better. Or as somebody who produces, when people start commenting on your images and say, you know, I really love the body language or the way, you know, this happened, or the light or the composition, it gives you a better sense as a creator of how to get better. So it's kind of just like 1, 2, 3 rule, which is like, if you post one, I always make sure I genuinely go out and like some images, and then I at least comment 3 times when I'm out there. And after starting this rule, which I learned from another guy on Instagram called Josh Johnson, all of a sudden my audience it literally just exploded. So yes, can social photography make better photographers? Absolutely.
And for a normal photographer or a non-photographer like myself, I can completely agree with that, because there are several times where I'll be posting a photo on Instagram fully expecting that this is a great photo, I'm going to get a lot of likes and a lot of comments on this, and it's crickets. And then you post something else that's just kind of a throwaway that you didn't even think about, and it gets a ton of likes, or in my case, 5. And you feel really good about that, and you feel really good about it when people comment on your photo, and yet you scroll through everyone else's photos that are ostensibly your friends, and you're just driving by, right? You're not even going to take the time to tap the screen and give it a like button. I mean, how expensive is that? Or type in a comment that's beyond, you know, awesome, or clapping hands, or what have you.
And because you didn't get that, this is what I don't like about the tyranny of the like button, is that somebody could actually post something that's from the heart and is really good, and because they hear crickets, they think, oh, that's not a good thing. It doesn't mean that, right? Because I think people are reacting exactly the way you think they are.
So next year's session is going to be called The Tyranny of the Like Button.
Yeah.
That's a great term. All right, now we're going to switch gears a little bit. Koci's going to plug into the projector. And
actually,
you want to go through the slides first?
Yeah, I'll go through the slides first and then plug that in at the end.
So what we're going to do is we're just going to give Koci the driver seat there and go for it.
So what I want to do real quick, I want to go through some slides, through some tips and tricks that will make you all, no matter what you're doing. No, I don't care whether you're in the news or photojournalism, or you just want to shoot your feet or your plate of food every 5 seconds. That's okay. I'm going to give you, from my experience as a professional photographer and somebody who has completely embraced mobile photography, what I think are some things I've seen work. So the first thing is, the beauty of a mobile device is, don't think, just shoot. Just shut up and shoot already, right? Just shoot, be prolific. So that's one of the things you have to do. Stop letting the inner critic that's in your head go, oh, would be a bad picture. Oh, it's going to be backlit. Oh, who cares? I grew up in a world where we only had 36 frames, and that was the most. You guys can fill up a camera roll of thousands of images if you want. Just shoot. It's what makes you a better photographer. So don't think, just shoot. And that's something I stole from a great analog film company called Lomo, and that's their absolute mission, which is don't think, just shoot. Right? So that's the first one. You have to silence that inner critic that says, oh, I'm not a photographer, oh, this is going to suck, oh, it's bad, all these kinds of things. Just shut up and shoot. That should be the title of this one, right? You have to be ready. I mean that, right? This is being ready. You find, this has a lanyard on it. If you ever see me This is what you will see. And what I do is I turn on my phone and I slide it on. This is not, and I notice I called it a phone, kind of old. It's really my camera. And after I'm done checking my email or doing anything, you know what I do? Before I click it off, I launch my favorite photo app and I get it ready to go. And then I turn this off and then I'm walking down the street. And anytime, oh my gosh, there's a bird, boom, boom, and then it's already ready and launched. You have to be ready. This can't be in your pocket. It can't be in your purse. I mean, if you really want to take pictures, photography is about reacting from your heart and reacting quickly. It's not like, oh, look at that bird, oh, okay, you know, I mean, it's gone, right? Anything you do, so be ready. Find a way to be ready. So even, you know, you don't have to put on a leash like I do, but, you know, find a way to always be ready. You know, I mean, that's my dog on a walk. He does that 100 times when we're walking, right? But it's just being ready and it's fine. It's a pigeon. That's not going to hang in the MoMA, but it's like, oh, look, how awesome, right? Just reacting and trying to capture things. A lot of photography is just about timing, right? So be prepared. Light, it's all about light. It's light, 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 study light. You don't have to read books about it. You don't have to, just look at light. Look at the light falling on the fruit on your breakfast table. Look at the light that's falling on me. I'm looking at the light that's falling on you. Just be able to look at light. So observation sometimes, right? Just stop it, because all photography is painting with light. So it doesn't matter what tool we get, it's eventually always going to be about light. See this? Don't ever launch this app. I'm an Apple lover, but they make the worst photo app known to humanity. I don't even know why it's on there. You have to find a default. Now, I don't own stock in any of these apps I'm going to mention, but you have to find another camera app that allows you to do one thing. And I think this is the key to better mobile photography. And that is the ability to take your focus and your exposure points and set them separately. I use an app called Pro Camera. There's a million of them that do it. Apple has yet to allow that. You get the exposure and focus lock with one tap in the same place, but sometimes that's not what you want. You actually want the camera to expose for the light over here and focus on this, and I'm going to show you an example of this. The hardest thing in the world. There's no professional photographer alive. Ansel Adams couldn't pull it off. There's no photographer who ever lived who could have made a very nice picture of what I'm going to show you. And that's a black lab laying down in front of a window. It's impossible, right? It's a black lab and it's a white window. And with a mobile phone, and we'll let this go. Oops, I gotta go back, it should play. Yay. Or is that just gonna link out to the web? Well. Mark, was this a video?
You didn't tell me there was a video.
Oh. Okay, it's okay.
I can connect it if you want to.
Yeah, Wi-Fi.
Cover me.
Quick. That would be good. It's basically, well, I'm going to explain it and then he's going to show it. You know, it's okay, let's move on. I'll just show it here in the crowd as we go on. I'll show it in the live demo. But the ability to do that is you're only able to do that where you can take the exposure point, and you don't have to know anything about exposure. And I'll show you in a minute. You can just take your finger and paint it where you want the light to be, and you can in real time see how the exposure changes. So that's Pro Camera. I like to use Hipstamatic, and I think another good app for some post-production stuff is Filter Storm. So I just wanted to give you a few things to walk away with. If you like Hipstamatic, there's a few things they don't talk about, and one is you can actually double tap the screen on the back and get it to zoom up full screen, and the volume plus button actually works, and if you hold it down it shoots in continuous mode, just one after another, which is really cool. And just to kind of get back real quick, you know, I was talking about most people don't know when you're shooting. The key to better family photos or candid photos is to stand here for a second, look like you're checking your email, launch your app, and then just put it to your chest like this and just shoot. And that's all I'm doing. I'm shooting right now. Shooting. Nobody knows what I'm doing, because the moment you go, oh, okay, everybody goes, You know, that's not what we want. We want them laughing. You will get a lot more crappy pictures, but when you get a good one, you'll want to hang it on your wall. It's really, just get ready and you're just like, you're total stealth. It's just like snap, 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 snap. Or if you don't have an app like that, you can I just thumb tap like this all the time and just walk around. I probably have pictures of many of you here and you didn't even know I shot them, right? Just like tap, tap, tap. So that's another good one. Hipstamatic helps with that a little bit. We're going to wind these slides up real quick and I'll actually show you some stuff on the phone, which we will have time for. Technical proficiency, highly overrated. Try this today, try this tomorrow. Can you go one day, 1 hour, right? And see if every time your heart, your head, whatever you want to call it, says take a picture, that you actually take a picture, right? That's where you want to get. If you can get to that point, you'll be a better photographer, right? The other thing is don't ever pinch and zoom with these things, ever, ever, ever. That's the first rule of bad, crappy mobile photography is if you pinch to zoom and you use the default camera app, your stuff will just suck, right? So you zoom with your feet. Robert Capa, a famous photojournalist, said, if your pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough, right? So that's what you want to do. You want to get close to your subjects, right? It's easy when it's our family and friends. It's a little harder when it's not. I happen to love street photography, and street photography means I like to shoot random strangers on the street, which I did this morning. A few tricks for that. Here's a classic one. First, so Mark's waiting for a bus, and he's 89 years old and he has a hat on. Why I love people with hats, I don't know, but if I saw an 89-year-old with a fedora, I'd find him and I'd see him. He'd be right there, I'd be ready, and then I'd do this. I'd go, oh. Walk by. That's called the TV sitcom yawn, and it works really well, and I just shot a picture of him. And I got close. I just did it to get close, right? You can do all kinds of things to get close. The key to street photography are headphones. Put on headphones. Nobody knows what you're doing. They don't even care. I have them with me all the time. Just put on your headphones and walk down the street. You can go like this all day long, and people will just like, they think you're listening to music, right? It's wonderful. And many apps will let you shoot with the volume plus button. So you could just, I know this sounds kind of weird, but I've had many conversations with no one, right? Oh yeah, and I'm just shooting, right? Anyway, that zoom with your feet. You want to get close, right? This is gold, you guys, right?
Hey,
20 images.
Can I interrupt for just a second? Sorry, you were on a roll, and that was good. We like that. So the get closer advice, I understand that when you're shooting people, but in Seattle, and I'm sure in San Francisco where you live, we like to shoot sunsets and water and mountains, and if you don't have a helicopter, you are tempted to pinch and zoom on that sunset or on Mount Rainier. What do you advise there?
You go out and buy. Many people make them, believe it or not. It looks ridiculous, but it works. It works really well, actually. It's about this long. It's a zoom lens for your iPhone, and it attaches here. It looks silly, but it works, and it's awesome. It's like 800 times magnification. And it's a little, you just zoom it in, and you can get whatever mountain you want, and it has a little bit of fall off on the edges for all you purists, meaning it's not sharp from corner to corner, but the center is really sharp, right? And anyway, you get some accessories in order to get close. Okay, 20 images of one thing from different angles. That is like key to better photography. And I mean, if it's your cat who always sits in a certain spot on the couch every day, look at the light and go, okay, gotcha. And then do that cat on the couch from 20 different angles. I did it in a street in San Francisco. My subject here was a wall. How many different ways could I photograph this wall in San Francisco? And here they are, right? And I found some ones that I liked. It's the same wall from many different angles, right? So you basically have to, you know, the old stereotype of a fashion photographer, they're like, work it, work it, work it, right? That you have to work it. That's really what you have to do, no matter what the subject is. Making assignments. For those of you not in the journalism world, that's what you want to do. You know what? Today, I'm going to photograph X. I'm going to make a really nice portrait of B. You know what? When I'm at lunch today, I'm going to try and make a nice picture of my whatever, lunch, right? So you have to know what you want to see before you see it. I know I want men in hats. If you are here, if there's a man in a hat, I will find you, I will hunt you down, and I will make a picture of you. You will, there's no question about it, right? And that's what I want. I know what I want to see, right? And I go out and see it all the time. So you may be you may be the same way about something else, right? Love your experiments as you would an ugly child. They're out there, right? They're on Facebook. I'm not gonna lie, we've all seen them, right? Not every kid is the cutest kid in the world, and all your photographs won't be the greatest photographs you've ever made, right? But love those experiments. My only advice is, I don't want to see all of your ugly children on Instagram, right? Don't post everything, right? Be a little bit more restrained. I called let it bake. I went like this. Oh, I got this picture of Mark. I'm all excited. Oh my gosh, I did this great thing. I'm going to post it, right? Wait a minute, let it bake. Look at that image for a little while and make sure it's actually the best experience or the best photo you can put out there in your stream. I'm just talking about a little bit of holding back.
Why not women in hats?
What's that?
Why not women in hats?
Why not? Oh no, anybody in hats. Baseball caps. No, there's plenty of ones, right? So be ready, be ready. I talked about be ready already. And we're gonna practice, 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 master your tool, your creativity soars, gives yourself personal assignments and deadlines, be prolific. Remember to edit. We don't need to see all your 10,000 ugly children. Okay, not questions. I'm gonna plug in here, and Mark said, how are you gonna do that with the microphone? So we'll see. I just wanna show you quickly, I took a few, loaded up a few images here on this phone that I took earlier today. And I just want to show you the process that I go through to work up an image. Now, I'm coming from a particular perspective. My aesthetic is that when you look at my digital images, you feel like you were walking down the street and you found a real picture in the gutter that had been run over by a taxi and somebody had stepped on it 5 times. And it was in black and white from the 1950s. That's my aesthetic, right? It may not be yours, but the purpose of this little, see, the men in hats are everywhere, okay? Was to, in fact, here, let me show you. Thank you, Seattle. That was like awesome, right? Right outside my hotel. You gotta know what you wanna see. Anyway, but what I wanted to show you was just a few apps, and something that I love, I think is a great experiment to play with, even subtly, is something I call app stacking, which is, don't think you have to shoot in Instagram and then post it with one of their filters, right? You can actually shoot it in another app, open it in another app, add a border, then add something else in another app, and I will open and save an image 4 or 5 times before I'm actually bring it in to Instagram and post anything. And I'll just kind of go through here a quick example. I hadn't thought this through too much, but let me see, maybe we'll work up. Oh, that was it. Let's just work this one up just because it's from Seattle. Okay, what would I do with this? The first thing I would do is bring it into FilterStorm. FilterStorm is like the Photoshop for the iPhone. Photoshop's app actually sucks. It's not very good. So I'm just going to grab this image and I'm going to bring it into FilterStorm. There it is, and I might adjust. Now, if you don't know what these things are, don't worry about it. Just start pressing buttons and moving things up and down. I mean, really, you don't have to know what curves are or anything. I sure as hell don't. I've been a photographer for 20 years. I just go like this. Oh, darker, lighter, nice, okay? I'm serious. I'm like, okay, that's where I want it, right there, right? So you can work it up in FilterStorm. In reality, this is what I would do to this image. Let me get as real as possible. I open it in Camera Plus. And I only bought this app because there's one really ridiculously awesome filter in here, and it's called Clarity. And if you go to Edit, and what it does is it really, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this all that well, but I'm gonna hit Clarity, and it opens up the details and the blacks, and in fact, you can actually see he's wearing a pinstriped kind of jacket, which you couldn't see before. And then I'm done. That's all I needed Camera Plus for. I'm done. See you later. So now, we need a taxi to run over this, okay? And so now I'm gonna find one of my other favorite apps. So that's now saved in my camera roll. Now let's go to Wood Camera. I don't know who comes up with names for these things, but Wood Camera. And let me load this last one I just put Clarity on. And here it is. And I'm gonna edit it. And there's a wonderful little feature here in the bottom. And not so much. Let's find one we like. I gotta hurry this up. I'm very picky, but
This one, that one's not too bad. That's fine. Oh, nice, right? I'm gonna pull that back a little bit, right? That's what I love about this one. You can pull it back, so it was like maybe not, you know, maybe it was a taxi, but it wasn't. I don't want to overdo it. Some filters are just, they're just too much. Like, oh, that's very nice. And maybe I want another frame. Maybe, okay, okay, done. I just got to stop. I got to get in here. Okay, so here we go. We're done with this one. Now, I just realized that I want somebody to step on it. And I know there's this great app called LowMob, and LowMob will allow you to, I'm going to rounded corner this, give this a 1970s look, and then I'm going to do one last thing and finish it up here. So I'm just opening this one up again in filters, and I'm going to pick, I love this one, Noir, right? Okay, and I'm going to tap on the image, and I'm going to crop it up. Good. You guys can't see the subtle details that this stuff's putting on, but I'm going to save that. And here's the last thing I'm going to do. So for all you old school analog folks out there, you have to see this app. I absolutely love it. It's called Typewriter, and we're going to put a little title on this a really cool way, and I promise we'll be done. Have we hit our 5 minutes yet?
How many photo apps do you have?
You know what's sick? I actually bought another phone to put more photo apps on. So, but I tell people, what professional photographer do you know that doesn't have 2 cameras, right? Everyone does. That's what I told my wife anyway. Thank God she's a photographer. She understands. Okay, last one here. I love this, right? I know I can find it. It's called Typewriter. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. It serves no other purpose than to do what I'm going to show you, which is just type stuff. So let's say we wanted to be cool and we wanted to go hashtag SIC, right? We're 2012. Awesome. Done. Let's save it. Save it to the camera roll. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into FilterStorm, the last step. This is a cool step in FilterStorm. Here's the image, and I will open all those iterations up. Let's go. This was the last one I did. And this is what's really cool. There's plenty of apps to do all this kind of stuff, but I just wanted to show you one thing in FilterStorm that's awesome. It's called Add Exposure. We can actually now add this. We can place it wherever we want. Maybe we want it right there. And I'm going to change the multiply mode, or the mode to multiply. I don't know what that means. I'm just press buttons late one night. And then I'm going to go to mask, and then this is the cool part, this little gradient tool. It's in the middle, the one that goes from white to black. And then I just drag these little buttons around them. Awesome, right? Done. And now it's ready to save, and I can post it to Instagram, and it looks kind of cool. And that's it.
Nicely done. Very nicely done. Kind of similar to if you would have used this, right?
Oh, absolutely similar.
I'm not sure where this came from, but it was just sitting on the couch. Did anybody lose their Polaroid?
That's mine.
Okay.
I'm not all
Very good. Well, that's an awesome demo. I think you can see kind of the sky's the limit on mobile photography, and practicing is obviously the thing that you want to do. We are going to turn things over to questions now, and I just want to mention one quick little side project note that I'm working on with a couple of friends here in town. It's called Fork, and it's a photo app that allows you to share food photos with your friends. And so what we're trying to do is get the food porn off of Instagram and onto a separate app so that you're not pissing off all your Instagram friends with your food porn. So anyway, it's not available yet. It'll be available probably in a month, but you can go to getfork.com and sign up, and we'll notify you when it is available. So we are going to go to questions, but I actually am going to put somebody on the spot with the first question. I'm going to ask the audience a question first, because we can do whatever we want up here, right? Ross Reynolds is in the audience, KOW talk show host every day at the Conversation at 12 o'clock every day, I believe. And is it at 12:34 every day that you ask everyone to take a photo from where they are at? Right. Can you come up to the microphone and talk a little about when you started that and what you've seen from it? Because I just think this is just really fascinating. Same time every day, you know, all the people listening on radio, they take a photo, they post it to Twitter with the hashtag, and, you know, I think it's just really cool.
Like all the good ideas, we stole it from Oregon Public Broadcasting.
Borrowed. Yeah.
They had a show that's on between 9 and 10. And they started a 908 project. So it's take a picture at 908. So we just did the same thing for 1234. And I love the photos that we get because they're kind of that spontaneity that we were just hearing about. Someone just hears me say, take a picture, so they take a picture. And it's of their food, it's of their computer screen, they're under the eaves trying to put in insulation. It's a shot of them under the eaves with the insulation behind them. And I just love them. There's something, they're not all great photography per se, but they just capture a moment, and it's a moment I tell them to capture. So we've got the photographs now, and we keep thinking we'd like to do a lot more with it, maybe do a storytelling part of it where we pick 3 pictures and have someone write a story based on those 3 photos. So it's just a great crowdsourcing project for us.
Yeah, you should make a book. I think it was Andrew Sullivan. Do you know about the book From My Window? Who did that?
Yeah.
And it's a very popular blog, and so they asked their users to submit a photo from their window where they read the blog from, and they took the best photos and they made a book, and it's really fascinating. It's such a cool book. It's like you page through this and you feel like you've just toured the world because they are literally from around the world. So let's do questions. If you guys have questions about photography, how it's changed the news business, or probably more specifically, what are the 89,000 apps that Koci has on his iPhone and which ones he likes best? Please get to a mic and we'll do those questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So we've heard about, or we've seen how easy it is to put filters on pictures, and we hear how news organizations are relying on users' pictures like this. How are the news organizations filtering out the filtered pictures? How important is that to you, like the manipulated pictures and truthfulness of the pictures?
I think your last word there was really the essence. So if the picture still has truthfulness, if it still has accuracy, if it has not been manipulated in a way that changes the information in the photograph, if all of those have been met, news organizations are lowering the bar. Slowly, but they are lowering the bar. So in the right situation, we would use a filtered photograph on Instagram about a breaking news scene that we couldn't get to. But it would have had to meet all of those requirements, those criteria that you mentioned. I mean, it still has to be correct. Like, we can't start taking photoshopped images. And I think it's the same as you might see in the way YouTube video has become part of, what you would think of as traditional news broadcasts. Whereas 5 to 7 years ago, or I guess just 5 years ago, that's how old YouTube is, you would never see a YouTube video, on NBC Nightly News, but now you do all the time. Because at the time, 5 years ago, the quality level wasn't good enough for television, but now the user expectation, the viewer expectation is such that, oh, it's a YouTube video that has a different quality than if it was NBC. Much like if we run an Instagram photo with a filter on it, it's a user photo and people get that. They get that it wasn't something that we professionally shot.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of photojournalists, we just came back from a conference where we were talking to a room full of photojournalists, and our thing was no filters, right? Trying to keep it as pure, if you will, as possible as a photojournalist, because I think that that's our duty in some sense. The other thing is that, photography is all about filters from photographers. We got in long debates about, just changing the auto white balances, filtering, and all these things. And professional photographers themselves, AP and Reuters, have had their own problems with professional photographers doctoring images. And so it's not just something that, is unique to citizen journalists, if you will. But the one thing is, there's technology coming out that can end up doing that. There's actually an app I have on my phone called Normalize, and it'll take any filtered image and just normalize it back to what it should have been. So there's I kind of want to stop sounding like an Apple ad. There's a software for everything.
Excellent. Yes.
I'm not quite sure how to phrase this, but what about ownership and rights to these photographs, and at what point does it become public domain? Is it part of the organization that it's uploaded to, etc.?
So King 5 is owned by a company called Belo, which is based out of Dallas, and the corporate attorney who handles this stuff is in the audience today, so I'll have to watch what I'm saying. But essentially, people are giving us the permission to rebroadcast and republish those photographs because they're submitting it to us either via email, posting it on our Facebook page, using a hashtag that we created and invited them to give us the photos to. And so that's where the rights transfer, if you will. We would, of course, not use that in a commercial enterprise of any sort, but as far as news coverage goes, that's where we get the rights off of that.
Yeah, you have to remember that the moment anyone in the world snaps a picture, you own the copyright to it. You have to be careful about places you upload it to. Like in the past, Facebook would say, oh, you upload anything in here, we can actually use it and put it in ads. But there are ways to turn that off on Facebook. And a lot of people are, a lot of professional photographers who are worried about that get a little app that watermarks their app with, their name. And so that if somebody were to appropriate that in some way, it would be very difficult to prove that it wasn't from, John Stanmeyer, because it's got his little copyright on there.
I think if any user actually read the terms of service on Instagram and Facebook and some of these other sites they're uploading content to, they'd be pretty shocked. I mean, those companies have written very exhaustive terms around being able to do essentially anything they want with your content. So that's a different side of it. It's not a news organization side of it, but I think we are, as a society, we are just contributing our content to wherever we feel like it's going to help us in a way, and the companies who are allowing it to do that realize that we're willing participants.
And I think if they break that, we will all scream like there's no tomorrow, and they will stop doing it, because no one has really done that yet.
Right, it's very much a trust issue.
Yeah.
So.
I was just curious about your thoughts on censorship for publicly uploaded photos. A couple of years ago when Katrina hit, the media had all control of hiding some photos or keeping that from the public. And, as a few weeks ago or a few months ago with the Empire State shooting, a lot of those photos became public and there was no control. So what are your thoughts on what to do with that, or if we should do something about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, there certainly is. The gatekeeper is no longer there. I happen to think that that's a good thing in some sense, because believe it or not, I used to be a photo editor, and I looked at the entire photo stream. This was before, believe it or not, there was an Instagram and there was an internet and these things. But I would look at all of the photos from the Associated Press, and it was my job to choose which conflict image or which thing to put out there. And I don't think that was, I'm very trustworthy, I'm looking for the truth and all those things. But now the floodgates are open, and there's no way to edit that stuff down. I saw those pictures on Instagram. They were graphic images that people were walking by the street and taking. And so I think that I actually embrace the kind of open door policy of having everything that's happening. You look at the Green Revolution and around all these things that were happening, that we're able to see those, and that from those and from the traditional sources of media, the traditional media can edit and cull down, and it is what you see on the front page of the New York Times or whatever. But I love that it's all floating out there. And don't forget, most news organizations now have it into them, not just to randomly publish any image they see and pull it in. They're trying to contact the people. They're trying to verify it before they put it up. So there are some checks and balances being put in place in terms of news organizations running particular images. It's not like the Wild West out there just grabbing anything they want. And some, fortunately, are actually compensating people for using their images.
I would agree. I think the abundance of content out there and the lack of a gatekeeper, there's no constraints of newsprint in a newspaper anymore. You probably had to deal with, trying to tell a very complex story in one photo. That's all the room you had, and of course that doesn't exist today if it were a big shooting locally or whatever the news story might be. And so, just that abundance and that ability to be able to publish every photo possible that every person took from an event, I think has changed everything. In our newsroom, it's a local television newsroom, so the police scanners are blaring. It's like 6 different police scanner channels they're listening to. We've got social media streams we're paying attention to. The phone is ringing off the hook. There's emails coming in by the second. All of this news potentially to go out and cover. And when we hear a tip nowadays, it's really common occurrence to not believe that there's news there until you can see a photograph from it on social media somewhere. And that's, I think, still just to me, again, worth repeating, because it just means that this is where we're at today. There's going to be photographs and cameras everywhere. It's the new state of the state. So, Any other questions? I think we have like 1 minute left. Because I will ask you questions if you don't ask us questions. I've already proven that. Yeah, go back. We'll do you, and then you want to come up. We'll finish up there.
Sports photography. How do you guys compensate for shutter speed on your mobile phones? I saw you capture lightning. I saw you capture a bird midair flapping its wings. Is there an app for that?
There's an app for everything called Fast Camera, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, there's an app for anything. And in sports photography, the one thing in order to get close is you're going to have to buy one of those external lenses or do what Dan Chung did. I think he wrote about it on his blog. He just got better optics through a binocular and got an adapter, and there you were right away. So yeah, there's an app to control shutter speed and f-stops ultimately. It's not in the form that we know it as, right? But you can get like slow camera will slow, give you shutter speeds up down to a second.
Go ahead.
While you're talking about disaster response and things like that, while it's really good to encourage people to be taking pictures of it, when you have a Katrina-style event or you have the Minneapolis bridge collapse, the I-35 West Bridge, those areas are usually shut off to the average civilian. And I actually work in disaster response, and we're seeing a larger and larger surge of people trying to get into the site because they want to be the one to snap that picture with their phone and then get paid by the media source. What would you guys recommend for the responders trying to deal with the people putting themselves in harm's way to try and get that photo with their phone?
Absolutely stay away. I was watching Good Morning America this morning, and all Sam was telling people was, don't come down, but there he is standing in the waves being pounded with his extreme big sticker on his chest that he's part of the extreme weather team, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. In terms of news and photojournalism, absolutely not. Be safe. I worked in the industry. There is no picture worth my life, or there's no amount of money. And believe me, the news industry pays you about $20. It's not worth $20 of your time or your life. Believe me, it's not worth it at all to be out there. No, you have to restrain yourself. Absolutely restrain yourself. That's what we try and tell people in those kinds of situations. Disaster situations for sure.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, right? Because then what you're doing is you're opening the conversation and the discussion and the debate really around who gets access. And you can talk about sporting events, and media credentials to cover the World Series. A television station gets it, but a blog can't. And a lot of that has changed a little bit. But in an emergency situation, this is really important stuff. And the responders, if you're making decisions on letting certain media in but not other media, and then are you letting just media that's official and credentialed, or are you going to allow just anyone? So the West Seattle Blog is a very famous independent publication here in Seattle, and Tracy Record felt she had a huge victory a couple of years ago when the Seattle Police Department gave her a working press badge so that she could go the same place that someone from the Seattle Times or King 5 could go. But then, yeah, you're always going to have, Joe Public, who's just an iPhone photographer who just wants maybe that piece of glory, since the $20 doesn't go very far, to have the photo that, ran on television, that was in the newspaper, or what have you. And so I think it's all going to come back to what makes the most sense for public safety and individual safety. But to me, it's an interesting discussion to have, because if they are going to let one type of photographer in, how does the citizen not be able to get to go too? So that was a question with a question, but there you go. All right, I think that's it.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks very much for coming.